Lovers of spell slinging and magic missiling of all kinds, rejoice. This one is for you, because today we're talking about a mid-game mage build for a team comp for Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles on Tactician mode that I think quite a few of you are going to enjoy. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including my ongoing coverage of turn-based strategy titles such as Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles, then a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much, especially if you enjoy little build guides and fun discussions of how you can make creative custom teams. It's kind of what I do around here very often, so if you like it, stick around. Also, of course, huge shout out and thank you to all of my channel supporters, because there are so damn many of you nowadays, due in part to the massive generosity of folks gifting memberships in my live streams. You'll see all of the names of the currently updated list of folks who are direct channel supporters, whether it be YouTube members or patrons, at the end of this video. If you'd like to join in on that illustrious group, you'll find links to do so in both versions in the description. So yes, it's another day and another entry in the Steal This Squad series, and as such, we do still have two short disclaimers that we have to provide. First of all, as always, the goal of the Steal This Squad series is to get people interested in how they can build fun custom teams for themselves. If you would like to just directly rip this team that I'm presenting today, or a direct variation of it, by all means you can do so, but more importantly to me, I want to see people be inspired by what it is that I'm presenting here, as there are so many different ways in games like FFT to create fun, flavorful, thematic, and most importantly, functional teams that don't just have to go down a direct meta route that people on the internet will tell you is, oh, it's the best way to play. Okay, but it's not the only way to play. And I like to inspire people to try out some of those more out there options that are actually quite fun if you give them the chance to shine. Second of all, I am still using my endgame team for this, so you're going to see fairly high levels for what would be a mid-game team, quote unquote. But as in the previous entry for a beginner team, you can see here, all of our characters are decked out in pretty much middle-of-the-road mid-game gear. Now, I define mid-game as basically end of Chapter 2 through the entirety of Chapter 3. That's going to be one of the biggest spans of time in the game that isn't direct end game, which is basically all of Chapter 4. So there's a large variety of different jobs, abilities, and gear that you are likely to get a hold of over the course of that time. So we have a little bit of a smattering of eras, shall we say, in that period here, but they all fit within the mid-game time frame. So with those two disclaimers out of the way, what is the team comp here? Today we have a very fun comp that is very focused around magical damage and support, with Izzy, Tox, Kelvin, Rhea, and Cherish, with the Summoner, Geomancer, Black Mage, Monk, and we'll talk about that, and Mystic jobs respectively. We'll go through here, but this is a team that is very focused on getting a lot of buffs and empowerment online in the early turns of the battle, and then just absolutely nuking as many enemies as possible, as quickly as possible, while still sustaining those big damage dealers through direct support. Starting off, we do have Izzy the Summoner here. He is rocking a Mage's Staff, a Wizard's Hat, Wizard's Robe, and Mage Power Gloves. This, as mentioned in other versions of these types of builds, is a great way to absolutely maximize your magic attack power. Every piece of gear here gives you magic attack boosts. Mage's Staff gives you +1, the Wizard's Hat gives you +1, the Wizard's Robes give you +2, and the Mage Power Gloves give you +2 as well. This leads to a whopping boost of +6 to our magic attack, a 66% boost to what Izzy has naturally, which is awesome. This means that all of his summons are going to be dealing big damage or big healing, and he's going to be very capable at his given role. That role is largely blow up the enemy as quickly as possible with big summoner spells as he can. There is some healing in here with things like Moogle, there's some support with things like Golem, but primarily we want to be dealing elemental damage with Shiva, Rama, Ifrit. You can get Titan, we can pick that up right now because I have the JP, and then bigger options such as Cyclops or Lich. There's a lot of power here, and if you can make the best use of it, you'll be able to clear huge swaths of enemies all in one go, and he's one of our two primary damage dealers for that role. Alongside that, as a support option, we do have time magics. Primarily, you're just going to be using this to cast haste, but we do have things like slow and immobilize if you find yourself in an awkward situation where you need to be able to do a little bit of crowd control on the enemy and you can't just blow them up outright, which can happen. Then we have a few different support abilities here. We have Auto Potion for some healing, Swift Spell, this is a big one, to be able to get those summons out really, really fast. Even though charge times have been reduced massively in the Ivalice Chronicles, summons still take a long time to be able to put on the field, so being able to make that happen a little bit faster is a great option for you. Finally, we do have Mana Font because, again, summons also cost a lot of mana, and while we do have ways to restore mana on this team, just being able to get some back naturally as you're walking around can absolutely be the difference between casting the summon that you need and be basically high and dry. He's a very powerful combatant. He will clear huge chunks of the enemy, if not outright one-shotting them, at least massively damaging them and making them easy to clean up for the rest of your team. Summoners are great, and on this team in particular, Izzy or any other summoner will absolutely kick ass. Continuing on from Izzy, we have Tox the Geomancer here, one of our mana batteries and one of the only frontliners that we have in the party. This is a very variable role. We'll talk about at the end of the video some of the other types of characters that you can put into this position, but as it stands, this is what I have on the team. Tox is running one of my favorite Geomancer setups with the Blood Sword, the Aegis Shield, Wizard's Hat, Wizard's Robe, and Red Shoes. This is just a sustained magic damage setup. The Blood Sword to get some easy lifesteal when you decide to go into melee, the Aegis Shield to give you a magic damage boost while also boosting your magic evade, Wizard's Hat and Wizard's Robes for the previously mentioned magic attack boost that Izzy had, and the Red Shoes to again keep that magic attack up while also giving us extra movement so that Tox can get where I need him to be when I need him to be there. As always, if you don't have the Blood Sword, you can use pretty much any other sword that you want. I do just like it for the little bit of extra lifesteal that it gives. As far as his setup is concerned, he of course does have Geomancy so that he can get very quick, easy snipes at range and potentially apply some status effects. But then the more important one here actually is Martial Arts. Martial Arts is going to be here for one purpose and one purpose only, primarily. Chakra and Revive. This is a direct support setup. If someone goes down, we need to be able to res them. If someone's running out of mana or is low on HP, we need to be able to fix those. 99% of the time, once you get into combat, these are the skills that you're going to be using on your Geomancer. Sometimes you'll pop out a Shockwave or an Aura Blast to help you pick off a low health enemy or weaken them slightly so that a spell will finish them off. Absolutely, that is possible. But when it comes down to it, you want to be backing up your team and doing so without needing to worry about casting, because successive casts will make those casts take longer, and sometimes you need to be able to guaranteed pop out some support immediately, you know what I'm saying? Beyond this, it's a pretty flexible build. I went with First Strike here just because it is a solid option for negating physical damage in melee. Anything else that you want to be able to get, Shirahidori is great. You can go for parry here. You can even go for like counter with the Blood Sword or other options like that, critical recover HP. It's not super specific, but that's fine because you just want this to be a frontliner who can take hits and keep the enemy away from your actual major casters while they're charging and doing their work. I just like First Strike with the Blood Sword because, again, like you can negate a physical attack and then also get healing as a result. So it gives you a pretty decent amount of sustain, and with 87 Bravery, you'll be triggering it more often than not. Then we have Magic Boost to make our Geomancy casts even stronger, and you can even see in some of the footage that I have here, he's hitting for like high to mid 60s, which is pretty solid for a Geomancy cast, especially if you can catch multiple enemies with it or apply a status effect. That will actually do a lot of work over the course of a mission. And then I have Movement +2 just because he had Movement +2 available. Movement +1 is fine. Something like Life Font is fine. Other movement options are fine. Again, you don't need anything super specific with this character. It is definitely more of a support and defend type of role, and that means that the abilities that you go with can be very, very easy. Moving on to our other damage dealer of the party, we have Kelvin the Black Mage. Kelvin is rocking a Thunder Rod, a Celebrant's Mitre, a Wizard's Robe, and the Mage's Cloak. Again, we're focusing on boosting our magic attack as much as possible here, but because we're in the mid-game and we wouldn't have access to things like the Wizard's Rod that you get access to later, Thunder Rod is a great option because I do have a focus of lightning magic on Kelvin. You run into a lot of rainy maps. It's a very solid type of spell because it doesn't really have anything that majorly resists it, so you can do good damage to pretty much every type of enemy in the game, as well as dealing bonus damage to dangerous enemies like squids, so it's a nice all-around option. The Celebrant's Mitre is the direct upgrade for the Wizard's Hat, and you will get access to it, I believe, fairly early in Chapter 3, if not right off the bat in Chapter 3. It's just the Wizard's Hat, but with better stats. It just gives you more HP and MP. So, like, once you can have these, you want them. For other characters that we've had, such as Tox, who has the Wizard's Hat, like, you can just upgrade to the Celebrant's Mitre once you have it. I'm trying to represent here the range of different types of gear that you can have through this mid-game period. We do still have the Wizard's Robe here as well. This really is such a hard one to replace. Eventually, you will get access to things like the Black Robe, which does boost your elemental affinity, which is a very solid option as well. But it will take a little while before you unlock those, and as such, for raw damage, the Wizard's Robe is really hard to beat for a very good chunk of the game. And finally, we have the Mage's Cloak, just to make it a little bit easier to dodge incoming attacks. God forbid there's like a nasty archer, or something slips through your defenses because it can move really fast, or it can fly. Giving your Black Mage the ability to dodge that little bit more reliably is definitely good, while still also boosting your magic attack. We then do have Black Magics, and I mean, it's Black Magics, right? Like, you're going to have all the spells eventually. Kelvin has Black Magic mastered, so he's got all of them. But at the midpoint of the game, you probably want to be focusing on one particular spell school. Again, the Thunder Magic here, as well as then some of the other options just for a little bit of elemental coverage, and then things like Flare for big single target damage, Toad to neutralize a dangerous enemy, etc. We then have items here for a little bit of backup support, because let's be honest here, sometimes your monks are going to be in a position where they're not going to be able to res a target because of the height issue, or same thing with Chakra. Being able to just say, nope, my damage dealer needs to res someone this turn, or needs to give them a big X potion, or hell, needs to just provide himself or someone else mana. Having items to be able to do that is nice, and there's really nothing else on this team in particular that Kelvin needs to be doing. We have all the other support that we need, and he deals more than enough damage on his own with Black Magic, so items is a good fill option. We then have Auto Potion. I don't have very high Brave on Kelvin, but ideally you would want him to. There's really no reason not to. It's just not something that I've gotten around to yet. And Auto Potion, much like the Mage's Cloak, will give you a lot more survivability if something does happen to sneak through and hit you. We then, of course, have Magic Boost, because, again, as a damage dealer, we want to be putting out as much magical damage as possible. And then Movement +1. You could, again, really go with anything here. Mana Font to keep your mana up would definitely be a solid option. Life Font to keep restoring HP as well, definitely good. But sometimes you like to be able to just get out of the way of the enemy, or be able to navigate into position to get big buffs at the start of the fight. Very simple, very efficient. You can never go wrong with a Black Mage. Next up, we have Rhea, and this is the one that I said we would have to come back to, and we will do so now. Obviously, Rhea is not a mage herself. She's not doing anything magical here. However, her job name does start with an M, and so we have a little bit of alliteration going on, and she, again, much like Tox, is going to be primarily a mana battery and support option. As such, she's got two very basic items, a Brigandine for the HP and a Power Gauntlets to boost her physical attack, and then she has a pretty standard complement of skills for a monk. Again, she has Martial Arts, focusing on Chakra and Revive, with things like Aura Blast and Shockwave for some range damage when needed. Items, again, for some off support, just in the rare case where you don't have the right height distance for your martial arts to do your support, or if you need a more specialized or a bigger heal, like you have that going for you. Speed Surge is nice because she will be on the front line and taking hits, and of course, as a monk, you do want to have high Brave in the first place, so you'll be triggering Speed Surge a lot, make it so you can take more turns, restore more HP and MP, it's always nice. Attack boosts that when we do need to start swinging with our fists, we can deal a good amount of damage to hopefully finish off a target, or at least weaken it for our mages. And then move +2 so we can get into the front line and not need to worry about having a movement accessory on and be able to focus more on our attack there. Again, very simple. It is a second backup option to keep your mages fueled up. And with how many spells you're going to be slinging around, and in the mid-game, how relatively shallow your MP pool can be, being able to keep them really kind of charged up and swinging away with big magic spells is going to be vital to keep this team functional. Finally, we have Cherish, who is set up here as a Mystic, and this is actually a pretty important character here for this team, even if it is fairly limited. She's rocking a Musk pole. Doesn't really matter what pole you're using, whatever the strongest one you have available at the current time is the one that you're going to want to go with, unless it's a Goku pole, because you don't want to accidentally hit something and put Atheist on it and now no longer be able to hurt it. So avoid that, but anything else is good, and you do want a pole specifically for a reason that we'll talk about in a second. We then, again, have the standard complement of magic attack boosting stuff, Celebrant's Mitre, Wizard's Robe, Mage's Cloak. Mage's Cloak is important because the Mystic is kind of a frontline fighter, and that will be part of the role that Cherish or an equivalent would be fulfilling on this team. So again, having a little bit of extra evade is definitely going to be beneficial for you. We then have Mystic Arts, and there's one particular ability in here that is more important than all the others, and that is Belief. Belief is a spell that puts a temporary faith boost on any character that you target with it. It does only target one character at a time, and this does not give you a permanent boost to your faith like over time. It doesn't boost your actual faith stat. It just puts a status effect on you. But this is huge because it will max out your faith score on a character. So at the start of a game, if you decide, oh, I need to really quickly toss out a Thundara spell, maybe it's not going to deal enough damage to just one-shot a dangerous enemy because it's a lower level spell, but it'll cast quickly. Well, if you cast Belief on that target, they're now going to actually get a big damage boost. This could be either on the mage to max out their face that they're doing more magic damage, or on the enemy so that they take more magic damage, which is a very fun tech option. That could actually make the difference between just hurting something and then having it slap you back really hard, or just nuking it from orbit and then letting you focus on other targets, get your buffs online, etc. Of course, Mystic is also good for a variety of other options, things like Quiescence to silence enemy mages, very important when you have a high faith team, so you don't just get blown up by enemy spells. Repose to put things to sleep if you just don't have what it takes to really just take them out in the exact moment, which can definitely happen, especially on Tactician. Hesitation, again, being able to disable targets, and all the other options that you have on Mystic here. So long as you have Belief, though, you'll be in a very good spot, and you'll be able to buff your team up supremely, which is a big role that Cherish wants to fulfill. She then has Time Magics, again, largely for the same reason. We want haste, and we want it now. Being able to get your team grouped up in a nice plus-shaped formation at the beginning of a battle and putting haste on all of them, and you will put haste on all of them because everyone's going to have good faith on this team, will massively increase the rate at which you can sling spells downrange, which is, of course, going to translate directly into more dead enemies. We then have options like Slow, again, as well if you do need to try and disable or mitigate the enemy a little bit. But the more powerful a team gets, the less likely it is they'll be using anything other than haste. We then have Parry. Now this is an interesting one because, again, Cherish is going to be on the front line, and Poles actually have an okay parry stat. This is going to allow her to go and fight on the front and deal actually very good damage with her pole once her buffing duties are done, or in between casts of things like haste, and then be able to mitigate some of the damage that she may take. It's not a guarantee, and you definitely don't want her to be as out on the front as something like Tox or Rhea, your Geomancer and your Monk, but when she is taking hits, this can help to mitigate some of that damage. We then have Double Hand, picked up off Samurai. Now, this is a little bit of an out there pick, because you do have to go all the way to Samurai to get it. But if you do have that possibility, then Double Hand is going to do a phenomenal job for you. As it says, greatly increases the attack power of weapons. And that does not mean their physical attack power. That just means the damage that they deal. So on a pole, which is scaling off of your magic attack, you'll find that you can absolutely crush in melee with this Mystic. It is always surprising to people when they see just how much damage a Mystic can do in melee if you spec them out for it. It's pretty crushing. They are legitimately magic dragoons, and they hit like it. It's awesome. Finally, then we have movement +1. Again, the higher movement plus you have, the better. You could also go with things like Mana Font, Life Font, whatever. But it is important to note that Mystics do only have 3 move at base, and because you're going to be on the front, you probably do want something like a Cloak to boost your survivability. So having something like a movement up movement ability will help you navigate around and get where you need to be a little bit better. And that is the party as a whole. So basically, how is this team going to play? It's very simple. Turn 1, you get your whole party in a plus-shaped formation or as near to it as you can, depending on the terrain. You pop haste, you pop belief, you do any other buffs that you can manage to cast. Then, as soon as your turn rolls around again, you just nuke the nearest targets and you don't stop casting spells until everything is dead. Sometimes you're going to need to take some time to heal or res someone. Sometimes you're going to need to take the chance to reapply some buffs. But after that first prep turn, this type of team has a horrifying amount of damage that they can deal, especially as you scale into the later game, can have more mana available to you, have even better spells and skills, and better equipment, so you can absolutely crush. Like, it is not uncommon to see summoners dealing across all the enemies 1,500 or more damage if they can hit a big group. It's definitely a very high risk, high reward type of comp, because if the enemy does get on your mages, they will fall very quickly. But you do then, again, have multiple different options to res them as well, so it's not the end of the world. However, it will not be anywhere near as resilient as something that has, say, some knights and some dragoons and things like that on the front line to really soak hits. So you are going to have to be a little cagey with how you play, and it will very often wind up being the case that the enemy approaches, You start casting your spells, and then you start walking backwards as your spells are charging to keep making distance for yourself. Because you sometimes will need that time to let your spells go off and start dropping the enemy front line without letting them get on your front line, or God forbid, your back line. You do also have other options that you can incorporate into this team as well if you wanted something that wasn't as reliant on faith, or something that will help to boost your overall turn 1 buffing capabilities. Something like a samurai to be able to put protect and shell on your entire team on turn 1 would be absolutely beneficial for you, and would give you a ton of AoE healing as well. You just wouldn't have as much mana healing, but you could very easily drop something like the Geomancer, or potentially even the Mystic, to get that sort of buffing potential online. And on certain maps where you wind up starting very close to the enemy, closer than you may be able to really handle while still getting your staging turn, having that ability to get big heals and big AoE buffs could be very, very nice. It is even the possibility that you could put some Eido on, say, your Black Mage and give them that capability rather than having items, but for this point in the game, it's not as likely that you have a super powerful samurai. You might not even have the necessary katanas for that, so just having items is a very good fallback as well. Overall, though, I love this team. It definitely feels odd, but if you really lean into that magic side of things, it will be very difficult for the enemy to do anything about it. You could run into issues with low faith enemies, or things that can cast silence or atheism or whatever, but that's fairly few and far between that you're going to run into those types of scenarios. And if there is something like that that's on the field and maybe a danger to you, just cast Flare or a big summon on it and make it go away. That's the beauty of this type of team comp. If you haven't tried an all-magic comp before, I do highly recommend that you give it a shot, and hell, you can even wind up speccing into Arithmetician later if you really wanted to, and that'll make it even more fun. That said, though, this has been the mid-game mages comp video. My name, of course, has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Whether it is this team that you decide to use, or you just steal the ideas that we have in play here to create a very interesting custom team of your own, I would love to hear about it in the comments. Tell us what it is that you're making. Tell us what you would do to further optimize this team through the mid-game into the late game. Just have some fun discussions, because that's the whole point of this type of video. I have many more ideas for different team comps that I want to present. I'm going to be looking at bringing out the Bearers of the Flame soon, something that I've been cooking up for a while here, no pun intended, as well as a lot of other guides and the like, so do let me know what types of videos you would like to continue to see from me as we continue covering Final Fantasy Tactics, the Ivalice Chronicles. And of course, I hope to see you all on our next stream as well. Until then, though, that is all that we have for tonight. I hope that you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there, everybody. And remember, be good to each other, y'all. Thanks to our channel supporters. Bye now.